Hello, welcome back to Keto Corner. Today we're going to discuss some more tips and tricks that you can use to make your experience of keto and intermittent fasting more therapeutic. So the goal of what we're doing here is to address the insulin issues that a lot of people are experiencing. So the idea is to get insulin low enough, to get carbohydrates, sugar, glucose, whatever you want to call it, to get it low enough that you experience cellular healing. And when your cells are healthy and strong and healing, that means that organs and organ systems can heal as well. So we're targeting the cellular level with keto and intermittent fasting as a way to getting ourselves healthy and even losing weight and increasing our happiness around how we appear, so our body composition. So that's the goal, and we've talked about kind of a basic version of keto. I just want to reiterate what that is. So that means basic keto and intermittent fasting is 3 keto meals a day. So using the keto food list, and it means no grains, no sugar, no processed oils. Okay, so this is really important. 3 keto meals a day. It also means 12 hours where you're not eating or consuming anything other than water, and 12 hours in which you have those 3 meals, your calories. Okay, so this is really basic. And it also means no snacks. So no snacking in between meals, because that's going to spike insulin. So the idea is that we give digestion a break. We allow full digestion of the meal before, well, enough that we can be ready for another meal. And we don't spike insulin, because the body's going to have to deal with, if you consume calories, if you have especially carbohydrates, it's going to increase glucose, that's going to increase insulin, and you're setting that off. We don't want to set that off multiple times throughout the day. Try to keep it to 3 times, because your body can manage that then. Okay, so the idea then is that this creates health, and this is good for anyone, including children, including anyone who's still growing, so even adolescents. So anyone growing someone, so if you're pregnant and you're growing a baby, this is a great plan. Also, if you're nurturing a baby through breastfeeding, this is a great plan, a great place to be. And it's even good for a full-grown adult who is healthy and at a normal weight, has no symptoms, is not on any medications. You know, this is perfectly fine for that adult as well. However, a number of us, myself included, are not there, and I have to be a little bit more therapeutic about it. So last week we talked about how carbs can creep into your diet. We talked about Carb Manager, and what's neat about Carb Manager is that you can see the difference between your total carbs and your net carbs and how you can play around with that. I tend to suggest net carbs, at least initially. And the reason why is because I want the least amount of restriction. I want people to be able to consume more vegetables and get more vitamins and minerals that way. So that's why I always start out with net carbs. But I'm not against total carbs. And I think you can use it therapeutically. And we talked about that last time. Maybe 5 days of looking at total carbs, 2 days of looking at net carbs. I won't go over all of those possibilities, but just this idea that you can play around with your carbohydrates, trying to keep it under 30 grams is kind of the typical approach to seeing benefits of a ketogenic way of eating. Then I also mentioned, we talked about how any change you do doesn't necessarily have to be permanent. Sometimes we can do something more therapeutic to lose weight, to reduce symptoms, and then we can kind of ease back into maybe where we were and see how that goes and kind of temper that a little bit. The body will try to acclimate. It's kind of looking for new normals, and it will try to sort of settle into a place. I've definitely noticed that, many times in trying different things. So that is a reality. Your body will do that. Okay, so for this week, some more tips and some different ways to be more therapeutic. I want to jump in and talk about, I've already talked about how carbs are not essential. I've mentioned that a number of times, and I'll say it a lot because it helps. If you drill it into your brain, then it will affect how you look at your food. So, and I talked about how there are essential amino acids and how this is our protein sources, right? And we need this in order to build and maintain muscle mass and bone mass, our hair, our nails. And this a lot of times comes from meat, right? And it comes from eggs. So we had talked about last week about simplifying your plate. And I want to just mention this because I think there's been a lot of demonization of meat and eggs, especially red meat and eggs. And actually that combination is extremely nutritious. And as you age, muscle loss and bone degeneration becomes an issue. So the protein side of your plate is so important to get that from your diet. It's a good place to maybe even spend a little more money on organic stuff if you can. Even sometimes, even every once in a while. And also there's and seafood. I haven't really talked too much about seafood, but we eat wild-caught shrimp, wild-caught scallops, and wild-caught salmon. These are really nutrient-dense meats as well. So, and then we had, I mentioned the essential fatty acids. We have to have fatty acids for health. Now, this supports our brain. This supports our nerves. This supports the cell membrane. And these things all have to be strong. But one thing I want to point out, and even on myself, I still have extra fatty acids on my arms and on my tummy and on my hips. I still have some extra, and my body can use that fat for these processes, right? So, and if I consume olive oil, if I consume coconut oil, if I consume butter, my body, those are just instant fats. They're right there. My body's going to use those first. And once it's done with that, only at that point will it then go to my hips and my thighs and use my body fat. So that's just something to be very cognizant of, for someone who wants to lose some body fat and work on composition. So that even more highlights the meat and the protein part of your plate. And you can get essential amino acids from the plant world. Oftentimes they're not complete. Some people will say they're complete. There's sort of, there's some controversy around that. They are not as easily assimilated because of all of the anti-nutrients that are in plants. So we're talking about lectins and phytic acid, and I don't want to go too far into that, but it's really important to value the meat and the eggs that you have in your diet. They're really important. The other thing I want to talk about, and this I think, in doing keto and IF, I discovered that I don't have the best relationship with food. And I think I kind of had an inkling of that, but it really came into a better focus as I started to do keto and intermittent fasting. So I developed a rhythm that helps me to cope better. So my rhythm is drink, meal. And right now I definitely like having my 2 meals at the end of my day because we are still raising kids and we want to have a family meal together. So this could be arranged differently. I could see when our kids leave the house, Mike and I, it might be more like drink, meal, drink. Okay, but for right now, in raising our family, my rhythm is drink, meal. And that just gives me sort of peace, knowing that I'll have something to consume throughout the day. So I start out, my first drink is a cup of coffee. And in that coffee, I have cream and I have MCT oil. And I right now am using, and I am 53, and that's part of the reason why, is I am concerned about bone mass and muscle mass. So I have some gelatin and some collagen in my coffee. No sweetener, but that's what I have. And then in the morning, I also make an electrolyte drink. And so this is a quart. I just take a quart of water, and I add 2 to 3 wedges of lemon juice. I add 1 to 2 tablespoons of apple cider vinegar. I add 1/4 of a teaspoon of Himalayan sea salt. And then I will add some flavoring. And so that could either be like a few drops of doTERRA's essential oil, the orange or the lemon or the lime. And then I'll add some stevia drops or some monk fruit drops. I will sometimes also I buy real lemon packets for my boys who like to have sweet drinks, but I don't want them to have a lot of sugar. So these little packets have stevia in them, really nice flavors, and there's a tiny bit of sugar, very, very little. It kind of just cuts the edge of the stevia bitterness. So it's not very much. And sometimes I will use a half a packet of one of those, which is like less than half a teaspoon, in this drink. And the idea is that not to make it like hyper palatable, like something I love, 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 but something that's very pleasant, something I do look forward to, and something that is helpful for me to feel like I am consuming something and I'm getting enough water. And the other benefit to the electrolyte drink is, sodium is one of the minerals that we need. And it's sometimes, it's depleted a little bit or is less on the ketogenic diet because we just don't carry a lot of water, extra water around. And so, and then there's the minerals that are in there too, the trace minerals that are in there that are really, really helpful as well. So that electrolyte drink, and that can help to reduce cravings too, because a lot of times our cravings are coming from malnutrition. Our bodies are not being well fed. So it is nutrient-dense food, partially, that will really cut the cravings. So we want to be really cognizant of that. But so this little drink, meal, and then, really helps me to feel good about my whole day. Okay, so the other tip is to 1 or 2 times a week do something more therapeutic, a more therapeutic fast. So right now it's on Wednesdays. I do a more therapeutic fasting day on Wednesdays. And I highly recommend doing this because I think it can really help. So on my Wednesday, or first place to start would be, instead of maybe doing drink, meal, it would be drink, meal. So that third drink for me might be a cup of hot herbal tea. So no calories, nothing in it, just a cup of hot herbal tea. I like to pick hibiscus because it has a lot of vitamin C in it. So I'm getting some extra vitamin C that way. So I'm still spacing out something to consume throughout my day, but I'm doing a little more fasting. I'm being more therapeutic with fasting, and I highly recommend doing that. Okay, and along those lines, it's more therapeutic to eat 2 meals a day. So if you are, not in the categories that I described for eating a basic keto and intermittent fasting, doing that lifestyle, then going down to 2 meals a day can be very therapeutic. And trying to eat those 2 meals within an 8-hour window. So, if you can get it to an 8-hour window of consuming your calories, and then you're fasting through the other, hours, then you're just going to have more autophagy, which is going to be cellular work. You're going to have more fat being used for your fuel, burning more fat. And it actually helps your mood too. I find I actually feel amazing during my fasting periods. It's come to that. I wouldn't say I started there, but I look forward actually to my longer fast day because I know I just get to this place where I feel really, really good and content and happy. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to say. And yeah, in all things, I want to reiterate, because some people will say, you're just not going therapeutic enough. Well, the reality is that I don't think starting in the most restrictive places is the right thing to do, because some people don't need to do that. And I just, once again, just want to reiterate, I like the idea of having more options in your diet, more options in your vegetables. So these things that I'm suggesting are very doable. I think you can do them very happily. And I think they can help to think about food and kind of maybe rein in our thinking about food, at least beginning there. I'll be talking more about carbohydrate addiction and more about food addiction and dealing with difficulties around this subject. But I think feeling like you have peace about your day, a rhythm, like I was saying, like mine is right now, it's drink, drink, meal, meal, can really help. So, okay, well, thank you for joining me today. I hope you'll try one or more of these things. I'd love to hear how they work out for you, which one really worked for you, or how your mentality might be changing around your consumption throughout the day. So thanks again for visiting, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.